Hi, good morning. My name is Muhammad Helmi bin Razali and I'm presenting alongside my team members at Yama, Ikan and Amir Rafiki. Today we will be sharing our assessment for Malaysian Tech Solution or MTS as part of our cybersecurity fundamentals under Dr. Wan Nur Shahida. Um, let's start with a brief introduction to MTS. Malaysia Tech Solution is a rapidly growing tech company located in Kuala Lumpur. They provide software, IT consultancy, and cloud solution. So why are we here? MTS has recently experienced some security red flags. This includes such as unauthorized logins, data accesses from overseas, and lost devices. The company spending management is growing more concerned about the organization's security posture. So our assessment had three main objectives. First is to identify and assess digital asset risk within the company, to analyze related threats, vulnerabilities, and the potential impacts. And third is to recommend effective mitigation strategies and controls. So in this assessment, we focus on four key digital assets. The first one is cloud infrastructure. Second, internal office network. Third, customer web portal. And the fourth is employee endpoints. These assets are critical to MTS business operation, so they require careful attention. So I'll start with asset one, risk one, which is misconfigured public cloud storage buckets. This happens usually when cloud storage, like for example, AWS S3 or Azure Blob, is left publicly accessible by mistake. It makes it extremely easy for attackers to find and download sensitive data. The risk level here is high likelihood with severe impact. The main threats are data leaks, regulatory penalties, and losing customer trust. And next is asset one, this two, which is weak or overly permissive IAM policies. So IAM stands for Identity and Access Management. If these policies grant too many privilege, or let's say if there is no multi-factor authentication, attackers could escalate their access or make unauthorized changes. Like here, the likelihood is medium, but the impact is high. Threats includes privilege escalation, under unauthorized access to critical system, and even financial or operational damage. And third is asset one, these three, unauthenticated and unthrottled public APIs. This means that APIs are open to the public without requiring proper authentication or rate limiting. Attackers can easily discover and abuse them. The risk is medium for both likelihood and impact. Potential threats include like data scraping, exfiltration, denial of service attack (DDoS), and unauthorized system access. And next is asset one, this four, which is insufficient logging and monitoring. This is very common. If let's say security events, API calls, or user actions are not fully logged or monitored, it became much harder later to detect breaches or any suspicious activities. The likelihood is medium, impact is high. The threats here are delayed or miss detection of attacks. Longer time attackers can operate undetected and increase damage and recovery time. And next is poor backup and recovery practice. So this is when backups are not automated, tested, or can be encrypted. Um, it's also if let's say if data is only stored in a single region and not regularly restored. Again, the likelihood is medium and the impact is high. The risks include permanent data loss, extended downtime during disasters, and also it can be regulatory non-compliance. And that's all from me. We pass to the next person.
Greetings everyone. My name is Adhyama Balakrishnan, student ID 12111097939. Today I'll be presenting the risks related to Asset 2, which is the internal office network of Malaysian tax solutions. This asset includes all the internal servers, employee workstations, networking equipment, VPN connections, and the systems that handle authentication and access. These resources are essential for the company's daily work and operations. If any part of this environment is compromised, it can cause major disruptions, financial losses, and even legal issues. I'll be explaining 5 significant risks we identified in this assessment, describing what each risk means, why it matters, and what kind of impact it could have on the business. The first risk is unsecured VPN access. This refers to the situations where VPN connections are using outdated protocols or do not have strong encryption in place. In addition, there is no multi factor authentication required for remote access. This creates a serious vulnerability because if an attacker manages to steal or guess an employee's login details, they can connect remotely and gain access to the internal network as if they were working inside the office. This could allow them to move deeper into the network, collect sensitive information, and disrupt services. The likelihood of this risk is high because many attackers start by targeting weak remote access points. The impact is severe since a single compromised VPN connection can lead to a full network compromise. The second risk is the lack of network segmentation. This means the internal network is flat with no separation between different departments, systems, or data types. In a flat network, all devices are essentially connected on the same level without barriers to limit access. If an attacker gets into one device, they can move laterally to other systems with little resistance. This is especially dangerous because it allows threats like ransomware to spread rapidly and infect multiple servers and endpoints. It also increases the chance of attackers stealing sensitive information from different parts of the network. The likelihood of this risk is medium because an attacker still needs an entry point, but the impact is high due to potential widespread compromise. The third risk is unpatched internal systems. This happens when servers, workstation, or network devices do not have the latest security updates installed. Attackers often scan for systems with known vulnerabilities because they can exploit them easily to gain access or run malicious code. One common example is ransomware that spreads by exploiting unpatched operating system flaws. Even a single outdated device can be enough to let an attacker into the network. The likelihood of this happening is high since patching can sometimes be delayed or overlooked, especially in busy environments. The impact is severe because successful exploitation can cause operational downtime, data breaches, and financial losses. The fourth risk is the lack of central logging and monitoring. This means that security events, system logs, and user activity are not being collected and reviewed in a single place. When there is no centralized log management, it becomes very difficult to detect attacks in real time. An attacker could be inside the network for weeks or even months without being noticed. This delayed detection increases the damage that they can cause and make response and recovery more challenging. The likelihood of this risk is high because many organizations do not have major logging process in the place. The impact is also high because late detection often leads to much more larger breaches and higher recovery costs. The fifth risk is weak passwords. This includes using default passwords that comes with devices, simple passwords that are easy to guess, or reusing the same password across multiple systems. In addition, if there is no multi-factor authentication, it becomes much easier for attackers to brute force or guess login details to gain authentication unauthorized access. Once inside, they can escalate privileges, steal sensitive information, or install malware. Weak passwords are one of the most common reasons for successful intrusions because they are easily to be attacked by the attackers to exploit with automated tools. The likelihood of this risk is high and the impact is high as well since it can lead to the compromise of critical system and data. In conclusion, the five risks highlighted why securing the internal office network is important. By improving access control, segmenting the network, keeping the system patched, enabling strong logging and monitoring, and enforcing complex password with multi-factor authentication, malicious tech solutions can greatly reduce the chances of successful attacks. Addressing these areas not only protects critical systems and data but also helps to maintain business continuity and customer trust. Thank you for your attention.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. My name is Nicola Justin. I will be discussing about asset tree. So we'll be starting with our first risk. So basically, as you see in the start in the slide, the first major risk in the customer web portal is SQL injection. This happens when the application doesn't properly sanitize user inputs before they are used in database queries. Attackers can craft malicious input that change how the query works. For example, they might use a simple string like or 1 equals 1 to bypass login checks or pull out entire tables of sensitive data. SQL injections is one of the oldest and most widely known attacks methods, and many automated tools can exploit it quickly. This makes the likelihood high, the impact is severe, because attackers could access or modify large volumes of customer records, causing serious data breaches and damages to organization reputation. This type of risk is especially common in login forms, search bars, or anywhere user input is included in queries without validation. That's why it is critical to address SQL injection by using parameterized queries and strict input validation. Our second risk is basically cross-site scripting or XSS. This vulnerability occurs when the application displays user-generated content without properly encoding it. Attackers can insert malicious scripts that execute in other users' browsers. For example, if a comment field accepts HTML and script text, and attackers could use it to steal sessions cookies or trick users with fake logging forms. XSS doesn't require breaking into the server, just submitting crafted inputs that get displayed. This risk is high because it's easy to exploit and can affect many users at once. The impact includes stolen credentials, account hijacking, and potential spreading malware. Next, we'll be moving to our risk tree, which involves weak authentication controls. The portal relies only on passwords without enforcing multi-factor authentication or strong password rules. There are no account lockouts or rate limits on login attempts. This makes brute force attacks and credentials stuffing much easier. Attackers can keep trying passwords until they succeed or reuse credentials leaked in other breaches. Once they gain access, they can view personal data or perform unauthorized actions. This likelihood of attack is high because weak authentication is a common target and the impact is significant. Stronger controls like MFA, complex words, and logouts are essential to protect customers' accounts. Let's move on to the second last risk, which is the denial of service exposure. The portal currently lacks a web application firewall and DDoS protection. Attackers can flood the site with traffic, making it unavailable for customers. Even though no data is stolen, but the disruption can damage the company's reputation and lead to lost revenue. Attackers sometimes combine DOS attacks with other exploits to distract security teams. The likelihood is medium, but the impact is high because downtime affects customers and businesses operations. Mitigating this requires a combination of WAF, DDoS protection, and monitoring the detect and block attacks quickly. Let's move on to the last risk. The last risk is basically broken access controls, IDOR, also called insecure direct object references. This happens when the application doesn't verify whether a user has a permission to access a resource. For example, an attacker could change a user ID in the URL to see or edit someone else's data. This is a serious privacy risk because it's easy to exploit and often overlooked during the deployment. The likelihood is high and the impact is severe because unauthorized access to customers' records can lead to regulatory penalties and loss of trust. Fixing this requires consistent server-side checks on every request and avoiding assumptions based on the user interface. So this is all the 5 risks that I had investigated and I had discussed. This is all from me. Thank you very much.
Hello, madam. My name is Muhammad Amir Rafiki, and I would be doing Asset 4. So, our first risk is endpoint devices, specifically not fully encrypting the device. By default, Windows doesn't enable the BitLocker. So, if the device is compromised or goes missing, there is a likelihood that critical information would be exposed. This is also known as data at rest vulnerability. The threats from this would be data breaches, regulatory non-compliance, and loss of sensitive information. The risk likelihood is high, and the impact is severe. Next is unmonitored endpoints, like firewalls and antivirus. If these aren't deployed to the company, it would mean that the company would not notice an attack until significant damage occurs. The threats from this would be malware infection, unauthorized system access, and delayed incident response. The risk likelihood is high, and the impact is also high. Next is unrestricted USB access. So the USB ports in the machine allow it to run programs and files immediately after connecting. Attackers can use this to hack the machine and leak sensitive information. It is also known as USB-based data exfiltration. The threats from this would be malware propagation, data exfiltration, and compliance violations. The risk level is high and the impact is also high. Next is operating system updates. So if a machine isn't updated in a timely manner, the machine would run outdated and vulnerable versions of the operating system and applications. This would create exploitable flaws that could be utilized by hackers to exploit the machine. The threats from this would be system compromise and increased attack surface. The likelihood of this is medium and the impact is high. Last of all is screen lock and inactivity. So if the machine isn't locked after the inactivity, say for example, an employee goes to the toilet, it would be left unattended, which could mean that there would be unauthorized personal access to the logged-in session. This is also known as physical session hijacking. The threats from this would be unauthorized physical access, data leakage, and session hijacking. The risk level of this is medium, and the impact is medium. That's all from our group. Thank you, madam.